It's Zach Edey with Purdue men's basketball, and you're watching Boilers in the Stands.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Boilers in the Stands. The Purdue Boilermakers win the first round here at the Maui Invitational over the number 11 team in the country, the Gonzaga Bulldogs. I am your host, Kraig Bowers Jr. Alongside me is Joe Jackson. And in Hawaii is Kraig Bowers. We're hoping he can join us here in a little bit. Just test out, see how things are. Obviously on the road like that, we'll just have to see if he can find a spot where he can jump on and give us the update and the vibes on the scene in Hawaii. That's what we do here at Boilers in the Stands. We give you exclusive coverage all day, every day, and everything Purdue basketball concerned. So, Joe, they were down 35-30 in the first half, and it seemed like Gonzaga certainly had some matchups that were in their favor. And Purdue put the clamps on them in the second half, holding them down. It seemed like there was a lid on the bucket for 3-point shots for Gonzaga. It did kind of remind me a lot of the last year's matchup against Gonzaga in a lot of ways, as far as them not attacking the rim as much. They did not get to the free throw line as much. So we're going to get into all that. There's certainly some thoughts I want to get out there. I think the number one thing, and I'll start and then I'll throw it to you, is, when they were down at halftime and all they had was production from Zach Edey, 15 points, but it was on like 4 of 11 shooting, and Braden Smith only with 11 points, but I'm saying only because they were the only two scorers they really could depend on, and they didn't have anybody else. And I said at halftime, somebody's going to have to step up outside of these two if they even want to have a chance to win this game. And honestly, they were fortunate to be in the game at halftime with the way they played, at least in my eyes. I think the free throws certainly helped them in that regard. And then enters Lance Jones, our guy Greg Waddell from Sleepers Media. He had put something out at halftime saying, "Oh, where's this Lance Jones?" Everybody was speaking about being a difference maker for this team. Well, Lance must have read that tweet in the halftime tunnel, because he ignited the Purdue Boilermakers, showing off that speed, showing off that defensive versatility, locking down some of the best guards in the country, stopping them on their dribble, while they're in the fast break or trying to get into a fast break. Really impressed with Lance Jones's performance here in the second half. Just overall gutsy win for Purdue to be able to get this win without hitting the 3-point shot tonight until the very end. And Miles Colvin also being another guy that really had some onions for a freshman put in, who didn't get very much run time for the game, and then all of a sudden thrust it into a very clutch moment of the biggest game of his life and career so far, and knocks down 2 huge threes to seal the deal for the Purdue Boilermakers. A lot of love to be thrown around, and this is kind of where I wanted to start. So, Joe, why don't you give us kind of your opening remarks and thoughts on the game?
Yeah. Sorry, I was not looking, just doing the back end stuff of getting things out.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, the first half was not pretty. It almost felt like Purdue was lucky to be down 5. It's just what they were at half. Like you said, it was Edey and Smith, and that was it. I have the stats right here. Edey with 15 at half, Braden with 8, Gills with 3, Jones with 2, Lawyer with 2. So just 2 guys that were scoring the ball. And then the second half, it started on the defensive end. That's really where it did. You saw Purdue force a couple turnovers right away. Lance Jones has a couple nice takes to the rim, converting kind of through contact. And things just kind of kept going from there. I thought the perimeter defense got much, much better in the second half in general. Obviously, Edey's a monster, and he's going to do his thing down low. He had, we'll go over it later, but he had 3 blocks in this game. Gonzaga in the first half, they were 6 of 19 from three. In the second half, they were 0 of 13. Ike, he hits 2 threes in the first half that, they said that was his like 4th and 5th on the year. Like, he's not a shooter. He hits a couple, which is just, guys, if opposing fives are going to be willing to stretch against Edey, they're going to have those looks if they want it. But he knocks down a couple. It is what it is. The second half was just so much better. There was more pace. There was more flow within the offense. Jones, showed why he was brought in. You get Colvin on the alley-oop from Smith. Colvin, and then or Heidi. I don't know if I said that wrong. Heidi comes in for the oop. Colvin knocks down a couple.
Cameron Heidi.
Yeah, Cameron, according to ESPN.
They kept calling Dan Shulman called him Cameron Heidi a few times.
And then Miles Colvin getting like important minutes down the stretch. I think you saw some of the defensive stuff of like, hey, this is maybe why he's not 30 minutes a game right now, but he knocked down a couple big shots. I thought he played pretty well, and just a big game overall. Also, Edey had 25 points, 14 rebounds, and 3 blocks. And I know a talking point's going to be like, hey, what's up with Edey?
Exactly. Back-to-back games where Zach Edey, in my opinion, had a bad game. But it's on Zach Edey's standard, which is a totally different grade curve than anyone else in the country, maybe at any level of basketball, including the NBA. Like, his expectation for his standard of what's good to great is much different than everyone else. And yeah, I would make the argument that it's back-to-back rough games for Zach. What makes him special is from the free throw line. You can't overly foul this guy because he's just going to make up for it on the back end with his free throws. So you can scratch and claw and bite and do everything you possibly can to slow Zach Edey down, but he's going to rack up the fouls on your end, which changes your rotations and gets Zach Edey the free throw line, and then he makes you pay from there as well. We're going to bring in Kraig here, who's on the scene in Maui, doing his thing, enjoying the day, enjoying the sunshine. How we doing, Kraig?
I'm doing great after that win, that's for sure. The arena here, we were here for the first game against Tennessee and Syracuse, and there were some fans here, but it was a completely different environment for Purdue Gonzaga. Just both fan bases, really, honestly, didn't pack the place, but for an MTE was a really large contingent in both, and it got real loud and real heated in here a few different times throughout that game. So just fantastic game, great second half in terms of what Purdue changed. I don't know what you guys have all talked about yet, but some of the changes that got made, and then just some of the performances by guys that, quite frankly, we didn't know what they were going to bring yet in a big game environment. They'd done it against some teams that just aren't the caliber of Gonzaga, not top 20 teams, and to see them, I don't want to say no-show in the first half, but not provide offensive contributions in the first half, for some of those guys to be kind of the ones that led the charge in the second half. That's going to do a ton for their confidence, and it sure shows what they can do for Purdue and change some things about how this team can play compared to how they played last year.
Yeah, we covered a few things. We haven't gotten too deep into it. We both had our opening remarks, so you showed up just in time. To me, the story of the game was Lance Jones and the spark he provided in the second half. As I mentioned in my opening remarks, they needed that third scorer beyond Braden Smith and Zach Edey, and they found it with him. And then, of course, Miles Colvin, with the 2 big threes at the end. The other aspect of it, too, when you talk about Lance Jones, Miles Colvin, and Camden Heidi, you guys have talked about it so many times, but the athletic, they talked about it briefly on the telecast, too, but they didn't mention Camden Heidi in this regard, talking about adding athleticism to this team that was missing from last year's team. And that was put on display multiple times here tonight with Lance Jones and Camden Heidi, with some nice effort on the defensive end. Even Ethan Morton at one point, when they were very sloppy with the basketball, and we can get into that in a little bit, but they had some moments where they gave up a turnover but stayed with it on defense. Lance Jones and Ethan Morton on back-to-back plays, and were able to cause Gonzaga to miss the layup on the breakaway because of that defense and some of the athleticism they were showing there. So I just think there were some elements here tonight that you can take from that show that they are a little bit different from last year. They still got to get their 3-point shooting right. They still got to hit the open threes, but you can see that athleticism has now been injected into this team.
Yeah, this is not my light goes out. This is not a one-dimensional team anymore. Like Edey got his looks a lot in the first half, and we saw, and he missed a few that were just like, hey, that probably just should fall. I'm not worried about that. I do think it comes around eventually. But yeah, this is a team that now can push the ball. This is a team that now can get downhill and have guards getting to the rim. You saw Jones do it. Smith, I don't know if he necessarily got all the way to the rim consistently, but getting to the mid-range, getting to a floater is still just attacking the paint. Forcing guys into rotation. Like that's a big thing that Purdue did not have, and it showed in the second half how critical that can be.
And, one of the things that I've consistently brought up about this in terms of when we brought Jones in was you either try to fix three-point shooting by bringing in another three-point shooter that you think is going to be really good at that, or you look at that situation and say, hey, no matter what, there's going to be some nights where we don't shoot the three well. And if we're not, do we have somebody that can do something different other than just shoot threes in post? And that's what Lance is, and that's what Lance did in that spark of that second half run. Got downhill twice in a row to score at the rim on fast breaks, pushed it another time and kicked it to Gillis, I think, underneath, who got fouled and went to the free throw line and then hit 2 foul shots. Is either him or TKR, I don't know. But just that added dynamic of like, all right, we're not banging a bunch of threes. Get to the rim, push the ball, score some easy baskets in fast break. And he just provides that in spades.
Yeah, you nailed it. The threes weren't there, but the tempo, that was the difference. Because I was sitting there like, when in the first half, when it was 6 threes for Gonzaga and only 1 for Purdue, I'm like, you're trading threes for twos, and the math ain't gonna math there. But the free throws were keeping Purdue in it, and then the war of attrition set in for Gonzaga as they slowed down in the second half with their scoring output. But conversely for Purdue, they upped their tempo in the second half. They stopped playing so slow and methodical, Lance Jones being a big part of that, and that's what sprung them to the bigger leads they had and were able to get them a little bit of wiggle room and a room for error, because let's be honest, guys, it was a sloppy basketball game from Purdue. Fletcher Lawyer turned the ball over multiple times. Mason Gillis had a few turnovers. Everybody's having trouble clamping the ball. A lot of loose balls that they weren't winning, where Gonzaga was winning off rebounds too. It wasn't just in, dribbling or inbound plays for Fletcher. I don't know what that was, where it slipped out of his hands. There was just so many different turnovers, but they were able to make up for those mistakes because they were pushing the tempo and having a larger margin of error because they were giving themselves more opportunities to score.
Well, and that starts with the fact that they were getting turnovers early in the second half. So my brother's at the press conference, Kyle, right now, and he's kind of feeding me some quotes back from Coach Painter as that happens. And he opened with one of the keys being the fact that they force turnovers. And then that allows you to get out in transition. And then they started pushing the ball just off long misses also. I know you call this sloppy, but we end up with 13 turnovers. And really, 4 of those are just completely unforced. 2 that Gillis takes his eye off the ball when he's coming around on a cut. And, there were sloppy moments, but, this wasn't like us in the Arkansas game in that scrimmage. It wasn't that bad by any means. But those turnovers led to us getting in transition, being able to push the tempo. And the defensive intensity in the second half was just at a completely different level. Lance, in his press conference, one of the first questions was about guarding Nembhard and just how things changed in the second half. And he said he was intentionally trying to be aggressively harassing to him. And I think that, you saw Nembhard. Yeah. Nembhard. He was controlling the game like I remember Braden controlling the game last year against Gonzaga. Yep. That's what he was doing to us in the first half, and that got shut down in the second half.
Yeah, 100%. Really off of pick and roll, and Joe can speak to this more, but he was really using the way Zach Edey playing off of him in the pick and roll, where knowing that Zach was going to go into his drop and then kind of having a nice pace to understanding when that separation was going to come and then attack the rim as Zach was starting to fall back off of him. Joe, what adjustments did you see off of that in the second half where they were able to stymie that a little bit?
I kind of I'm sorry, I kind of cut out there.
No, I'm just saying, because in the first half, it really felt like Nembhard was attacking the pick and roll, like Kraig said, the way Braden Smith does so many times. And he was specifically attacking the way Zach Edey, goes into his drop off the pick and roll on defense and kind of waiting for that separation moment and using that patience and pace to know when to attack the rim. But in the second half, it didn't seem like they were able to go to that as much. Did you see any adjustments there?
I think it was just Jones. He just, quite frankly, got torched in the first half. I thought like there was a few plays he just got burned, and sometimes it is what it is. I thought he was able to be more physical in that second half. Ethan Morton came in and had a good stretch on defense too. We talk about like being a physical defender. Jones brings that. I love Morton. I think that's pretty. I've said that multiple times as a defender. He doesn't have quite the physicality that Jones does, and just being able to get into the ball handler, funneling them. I think he just took more floaters as well. Also, Ek knocking down 2 early threes. At least, even if Edey doesn't, the game plan is for Edey to not respect the 3. If a guy knocks down 2 early threes like that, it's still in your head, and now you see Edey playing a little bit higher. He's a little more worried about getting out to that. As the threes weren't falling, Edey was able to stay back more, and so now instead of Nembhard getting kind of in rhythm jumpers or getting more to the rim, it's kind of a floater that he threw 15 feet in the air, it felt like at times, because Edey's right there. So the combination of just being able to get into the ball handler, forcing him like purely into Edey, and Edey not having to worry about the perimeter. I thought Braden also in the first half, and he does this, he just kind of with the drop coverage. So drop coverage is where Edey's, when the screen happens, Edey's, a couple steps below the screen. He kind of backpedals to the rim. The goal is to keep the ball in front and force a mid-range. With that, the guard has to force the ball handler to then use the actual screen, because if not, if he reverses, now Edey's way out of whack, and it is like, that's just bad news. Braden sometimes gets caught forcing too much, and then he's like 3 steps behind the ball handler. I thought he didn't do that in the second half, and so even if he's behind him, was on his hip, and it wasn't like completely away. So I think there was just little things like that, and then energy, as simple as that too. There's just more energy in the second half.
Yeah, I just saw Bobby Buckets over there. He gave me a big wave, so I had to return the wave to Big Bobby Buckets over there.
You have to tell Bobby Buckets he's gonna big time us all year. Like, if we gotta like book him, how much is his rate?
Well, he's literally doing his post-game radio show right now also, Greg.
Oh, really? Some competition here. All right, Bobby. We'll see what's up with Boilers in the Stands versus the Purdue men's basketball radio network on Learfield. Shout out to those guys. We love those guys. So yeah, let's get into it. We've kind of kicked around some of our opening thoughts. We'll get into more individual performances as we go. But let's kind of read off the stats like we always do here at this time. And so team stats is where we want to go. And Purdue ends up shooting 47% from the field. I believe they only shot 37% from the field in the first half. So they upped that 10 percentage points up in the second half, shooting 28 of 60 from the field. Gonzaga on 26 of 69, shooting 38% from the field. Purdue, an abysmal 24% on 4 of 17 from three-point land. And somehow Gonzaga gets up 32 threes, but only makes 6 of them. They did not hit 1 3 in the second half. I believe they were 6 of 19 at the end of the first half and finished 6 of 32 on the game for 3. In my opinion, that reminds me of last year, because I'm pretty sure the exact same thing played out for Gonzaga in the second half. 19% from 3. From the free throw line, 13 of 16 from the line for Purdue, 81% from the stripe. 5 of 8 from the line for Gonzaga, 63% from the stripe. Points off turnovers, 13 for Purdue, 14 for Gonzaga. Turnovers, I should say, 13 for Purdue, 14 for Gonzaga. Points off of those turnovers, 13 for Purdue, 19 for Gonzaga. Rebounds, they end up dead even at 38 apiece. Purdue and Gonzaga both get 38, but defensive rebounds, 30 for Purdue, 8 on the offensive glass. Gonzaga with 25 rebounds, 13 on the offensive glass. Second chance points, 10 second chance points for Gonzaga, and 9 for Purdue. 14 bench points for Purdue, 10 for Gonzaga. Points in the paint, this is where Purdue dominated. 44 points in the paint to only 30 for Gonzaga. Fast break points, 14 for Gonzaga, 11 for Purdue. 3 blocks for Purdue, 2 for Gonzaga. Steals, 12 for Gonzaga, and 9 for Purdue. Assists, 13 for Gonzaga, 11 for Purdue. And lead time, it was pretty down the middle. 17 minutes of lead time for Purdue, 21 minutes of lead time for Gonzaga. Kraig, I'll start with you. Any of those stats stand out to you?
I mean, there's quite a few that do. The funny thing about we keep talking about the offensive rebounding, and what I think this is the third time this year out of 4 games that we've been beat on the offensive boards, which just didn't happen last year. With that said, 6 of those came on 2 plays. So out of those 13 offensive rebounds we gave up, 6 of those came on 2 plays, and somehow both of those plays Gonzaga didn't score any points. So I just think that's a little bit quirky. But certainly for me, the thing that jumps out is fast break points, because if we look at last year's team, they just didn't generate fast break points hardly ever. So that stat to me is a really important one, and just kind of exemplifies what everybody's can do in terms of changing the pace and the tempo. When you add Heidi out there running on the wing on a fast break, Colvin running on the wing on a fast break, and you have secondary ball handler and Jones that can push it, they just seem, whether that's PJ as the new offensive coordinator, like really making that an emphasis and saying we're going to push it, or if it's just a matter of the fact that now we have the guys that can do it. So they're really pushing it. One of the two, but I love seeing that stat being higher consistently than what it was last year.
For me, I would say the first one that stands out is 11 assists on 28 field goals. This is the lowest, I believe, assist rate that we've had all year, or Purdue's had all year. Kind of a funky game. Also, just some of that is Edey getting so many post touches that it's just going to fall down. I know part of it's also shooting 4 of 17 from 3. That's knocking down threes is more up, unless you're Lance Jones pulling up from 35 feet, like you're probably coming off at an assist. So that's the first thing that probably stands out to me. Free throws obviously big, 13 of 16 from the line. Kraig already mentioned the rebounding is interesting. Like, I don't know if I don't know. I don't know if it stays. I don't know if some of it's because of the pushing of the ball too. I don't know. But yeah, those are probably the main things I would say that stand out to me. Braden does get to 6 assists, 13 points, 4 boards was huge. Just also 5 steals. I did not realize that in game, but Braden had 5 steals.
Jeez.
I would say just kind of overall, like you got, although the points don't show it, like you got contributions, I think, from a lot of players today.
Well, and if you just look at the second half stats, then it looks like you got contributions from a lot of people. It's that first half, we were a 2-man team offensively. And I saw somebody else put that out there, and they were right. Offensively, that's what Purdue was in the first half. And in the second half, it came from a lot of different places. Even if it was only 6 points here, 6 points there from a few different bench players, those were just massive. How about having, I know this isn't a stat thing, but I may have to go as the next wave of media comes in. How about having Miles Colvin in there with 6 minutes to go, really deep into the stretch to the end of that game? Like, I starred that in my notes right then. I was like, Painter has a lot of trust if he's leaving Miles, a freshman, in his first really big game away from Mackey, in at 6 minutes. And I think he stayed in until about 1:30 left.
Right.
Yeah.
But you saw why he did get beat on a back cut during that stretch, and he's going to have some of those defensive lapses, but he's in there to bang threes and make some athletic plays, and he did it. If he doesn't bang those 2 threes, our 3-point percentage is much lower on the night.
He got a rebound or two, I believe, too.
He got a really important rebound when the game was, I want to say, 6 or 7 points, maybe 8 points.
And they just needed somebody to grab the damn ball, and he was like a few times I'm just screaming, like, get to the loose ball. And he was able to clamp a few rebounds. And then, he missed his first 3 in the clutch moment. And then the next one in the corner, it seems like he's locked in the from the corner 3, and that goes down the well. And then he kicks it out from the elbow 3 and hits that one, which was pretty much the dagger. I give Painter a lot of credit for putting him in that situation in a veteran loaded lineup. I mean, last year he's playing freshman, but out of necessity. This year he could have let Miles, sit on the bench and observe. Instead, he throws him into the fire, and not only does it pay off, but now you've really put a lot of confidence into a young freshman with a lot of talent. So I was really impressed by that by Miles Colvin and Matt Painter to put him in that situation.
And I think
I was just going to say, Painter said multiple times he's going to ride the hot hand. And every coach is going to say that, but are they actually? You saw that today. All right. Gillis is going to start in the second half. He rides Miles deep down the stretch there. He was just going with who was playing well and when they were playing well.
Well, let's Joe, if you have something to add on to that, go ahead.
That was pretty much it. It was going to be like, hey, we're going to talk about Lawyer, but Lawyer struggled. He doesn't play on the stretch.
That's where I want to go, because you're talking about
at halftime, Gillis starts over TKR. We'll get on that too. Let's go to Lawyer.
Right. That's exactly where I want to go. Is these next 2 guys? We've thrown all the rose petals. Great win. Looking forward to tomorrow. Down 5 points, come back and win. Start playing the hot hand in the second half. But I know our guy, our guy in the chat, that Corey Lesney, and we appreciate his support. He's going to tell us, like, hey, let's talk about what needs to get better. And Fletcher Lawyer, we'll start with him. A cold day shooting. He's had a rough start in general here to start the year. So Joe, I'll go back to you. I didn't mean to cut you off, but it just seems like he's looking for a confidence boost. I have some thoughts about TKR, but I have a little more hope that Fletcher Lawyer can get going, because I do believe he has that confidence within him. But clearly right now he's having trouble shooting the rock.
Yeah, and I think this goes back. Like, I want to emphasize, I'm gonna start with this by saying Lawyer was bad this game. Painter went away from him. Like, that's a good sign that Painter went away. You don't have to rely on a Lawyer. We are 1 game removed from Lawyer having 11 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals. Yes, the shooting's not there. Yes, it needs to be better. And so, like, and Corey talks about the defense. Like, he's obviously not an elite defender. I don't know. His guy had like 8 points. I think for me personally, a lot of the off-ball stuff isn't as blatant as currently as like Colvin and Heidi maybe have. Colvin and Heidi are so much more upside defensively. Don't get me wrong there. This wasn't Lawyer's game, and Lawyer didn't play the minutes because of it. Like, I think there's still reasons for him to play. The passing wasn't. I always harp on the post-entry passing. The passing wasn't there. Like, that's something he brings. It wasn't there. So there's another reason why, like, he wasn't in the lineup down the stretch. He isn't the best ball handler, but like, I think something that gets kind of ignored is he just draws contact getting downhill. He doesn't do it often, but like he had 1 or 2 turnovers. He had the 1 drive. He just kind of initiates contact and draws fouls there. I'm not worried about him in the long run. Also, if this team doesn't have to rely on Fletch for 30 minutes a game, that's probably a good sign for Purdue in general.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Also, I think Painter at some point made the decision towards the end of the first half, but definitely into the second half, of like, okay, we're not going to just outscore this team, and let's play our best defensive lineups. Because I think you'll do the rotation thing later, but there's certain lineups that are just definitely better defensively all the way around. and he went very few minutes in the second half with TKR and Edie together, and he went a lot of minutes where I'm pretty sure I'd have to go back and look, but either Jones or Morton was on Nemhard the entire time in the second half. In the first half, there were minutes where Smith was on him for a decent little stretch there also.
Yeah, I agree. So yeah, it's I'm not concerned, and I'm not excuse making for Fletcher Lawyer. I mean, we talk a lot about how last year ended. They need to shoot the ball with confidence. They got to knock down their open shots. But if there's anybody on this team that I have the confidence in making those open shots, it's Fletcher Lawyer. He's a sophomore now. He's got a lot of experience, good experience where they won a Big Ten championship and a Big Ten tournament championship. They got to right some wrongs in March. Obviously, that's a long way to go, but I'm not bailing on Fletcher Lawyer at this point yet. Let's move to Trey Kaufman-Ren, because this is where I do kind of sound the alarm. You know, Corey did ask us a few weeks ago, like, well, what does concern you? And my concern definitely has been Trey Kaufman-Ren. I like the guy. I think he's a good kid and all that. Like, if you've ever met him in person, like, he's got a good, personality, nice dude. Trying to understand where he fits in this lineup with Zach Edey. I'll give him credit because he did not have a good first half by any standard, but then in the second half, when Zach came out, Kraig pointed out on Twitter, I think they won when Zach was out like 8-2 or something like that. Was it, Kraig? When or maybe Joe tweeted it.
Yeah, that wasn't me.
Yeah, they won when you're talking when Edie and Smith were off.
Yes. And
they won 7-2 in that 2 minute stretch.
7-2, and they went and they used Trey Kaufman-Ren in the Zach Edey role. They just fed the post and let him go to work. He waved everybody off. But even the points that he made, the couple buckets he made, those are tough. Those are high difficulty shots. And I just, like, while I'm impressed that he has that skill, everything seems like a struggle for Trey Kaufman-Ren. Like, everything's a grind. And I know he's got talent. I'm not saying he doesn't have talent, but I'm definitely worried about his fit in the rotations and just how high his ceiling is as a player. I know there's been a lot of hype going into this year of what he can be. And if Zach's not on this team, he can be an all Big Ten type of talent. And I'm just not seeing it yet.
I'll say one more thing, and then they're starting to blare the music, and people are starting to come to Media Row, so I'm going to sign off after that.
No problem.
I guess I kind of disagree. In the first half, and when he's playing beside Edey, I can agree with you. But when they finally featured him and played first beside him, so first is a better defender at the rim than what TKR is. And I think when they finally featured TKR as just a straight post player, and that little baby right hook for him, that's his shot. I don't think as long as he's within 4 to 5 feet, he's not considering that a high degree of difficulty shot, I don't think, because he makes that consistently. The last one he tried, he was pushed out way too far and just put his head down and decided he was going to go get it because it was his time. Probably needed to kick it out, but I personally came away in the second half a lot more excited about TKR and the thought that Painters just decided, look, we're going to have to do some minutes in some different ways where we can feature TKR and use him to our benefit offensively, and that comes best when he's on the floor without Zach.
That's fair. And again, I'm not certainly saying he's a bad player. I'm just that all Big Ten, some of that hype and rhetoric that was getting thrown around of his potential, not writing it off, but I'm just not seeing it yet is basically where my standpoint is on that.
Yeah, but when he is the featured post player for 30 minutes a game, he's going to get 15. I mean, at least every game. So sure. I'm going to go ahead and sign off, let everybody else sit down, and I'm sure everybody can hear the music blaring in the background too. So
yeah, great job so far out in I know it's not in Maui. I want to say it's in Maui, but it's not in Maui. They just call it the Maui Invitational, correct?
Correct. It's in Honolulu.
Yes.
So we're staying at Waikiki Beach, just down the road here from the Stan Sheriff Center. and getting to see a lot of people who work for Purdue basketball, seeing a lot of Purdue basketball fans out there. It's been a really fun time. A lot of them have come up and talked to us and recognized us from the show. Got a long conversation with the man in the shirt yesterday. So, hey, we got to talk about that. They want to donate one of those to us and have us like raffle off on the show for charity or something.
Okay, sounds good.
Let's do
Nice,
it.
nice, very good. Great work, putting that out there. And just all the coverage and giving us the exclusive look there in Honolulu at the Maui Invitational. So keep up the great work. I'm glad they could get the win here today. Let's see if they can get 2 more. Just excited to see how they match up here against Tennessee. Do you have any quick thoughts, Kraig, before you go, as far as the outlook here going forward against Tennessee tomorrow?
Scared to death.
Scared to death. Okay.
I said that a week ago. Tennessee scares me. Super athletic. They can really get up into you and pressure you. It's just, it's 40 minutes of not necessarily pressing, but just half court up in the guy's body, playing intense defense all the time. They can force turnovers. And Dalton Connect is a problem. He's going to be a problem for everybody, but he's going to be a problem, and we're going to have to figure out who's going to guard him. I don't know if that's going to be Cam. I don't know if that's going to be Mason, but we're going to have some difficulty. I think certainly they can still win, but that game's going to stress me. I'll be thinking about it for the next 24 hours, I promise you.
Well, hey, this is probably the most stacked Maui Invitational in their 40-year history. So, this is why Purdue signs up for these kind of tournaments. 27 or 28 in a row, non-conference regular season wins for Purdue, by far and away the most wins in a row, or that streak right now that holds. So let's see what they have tomorrow. So Kraig, will look forward to your coverage. And everybody just stay tuned to what he's doing on Boiler Diehards on Facebook, and of course on Twitter. Make sure you follow him, and of course on @Boilers in Stands, and we'll be giving you more inside look to everything going on in Honolulu. So we'll let you go, Kraig, and we'll see you here tomorrow night. Love you. All right, that's Kraig Bowers. We're getting we're rounding second, maybe even rounding third here. I've got a live show I've got to do here in 23 minutes with Corey Wooten on CHGO Bears, covering the abysmal loss to the Detroit Lions, after being up 12 with 4 minutes to go. So we're gonna go lick our. Yeah, I won't let this go. I don't care how busy I get covering the Chicago Bears, because this is my one beacon of happiness and hope while I cover sports for a living. And to be able to talk about one of the best teams in the country every year. This is my 7th year following this team as close as I have. And like all these Purdue fans that have been through, all the tough times, and obviously have had some. We've had some tough losses in the tournament here the last few years, but it's been nothing but some of the golden era right now of Purdue basketball, and it has been for a few years now. And if they can win their next 2 games against Tennessee and Kansas, it'll be their 3rd year in a row as the #1 team in the country. So, and they're going to have to earn it. Last week Kentucky almost took down Kansas, and I'd be lying to you if I wasn't swearing at my TV the entire time when Kentucky blew their 12-point lead. But as Joe said, if they take care of their own business this week, they can be #1 on their own terms, which is a lot more fun than it being handed to them. So, I liked how they showed their moxie here tonight, being down 5, seeming like that Gonzaga might have had their number in some ways, and then Purdue showed who they were. They flexed their muscles. Zach Edey got tougher in the second half. He always seems to do that, right? Where he and Jay Billis, credit to him, and that's a powerful name in this industry to call it out. But he says on the telecast, Zach Edey gets fouled on every play, and you could call it on every play. And they showed some replays where he's clearly getting fouled and no call. And he points out that Matt Painter has basically stopped saying anything to the refs, which I always have struggled with, going back and forth of how much Matt Painter should get on their asses about that. And he does a very good job with that stuff. Like you saw in the second half where he kind of had a moment of levity with the refs where he's kind of laughing with them after yelling at them for a call that was made on a loose ball foul. And then he did start to get on them a little bit for some of the no calls with Zach Edey. So there's a balance there, and there's a dance when it comes to the refs. And I'm sure I'd handle it much differently if I was the coach, because I'm a lunatic. So I respect Matt Painter for his balance. But, to me, Zach, then the war of attrition, like somebody just said in our chat, like they wore them out with their depth. But they also just wore them out with the strength of Zach Edey, and getting that team into foul trouble and being able to just flex their muscles. I was, I'll never take for granted what Zach does for this team, no matter if I think he's had back-to-back bad games, because I do feel that way, which is silly to say, but I'm not going to pretend like that's not how I feel. He had 25 points on 8 of 16 shooting, 9 of 10 from the free throw line, 14 rebounds, and my dumb ass is saying he had back-to-back bad games. I mean, this is the standard that Zach Edey has to live by here on Boilers in the Stands.
Yeah, I would go probably mediocre. Yeah, I think he had a bad first half, and I think he turned it around second half. But yeah, like it's just the truth of where he's at, like how dominant he is. He's had quite a few of those hooks that it's just like, hey, those should fall. Like, that's what Zach Edey does. He gets those to go. But yeah, 25, 14, and 3 blocks. And we're like, yeah, whatever. It's not like he's, the best player in the country by a bit, I think, at this point. Or there's a couple guys that are actually showing off, especially Dalton Connect, who Purdue will play tomorrow.
Yeah. Hunter Dickinson flexing his muscles against Kentucky certainly pissed me off too. I'm not sad to see him out of the Big Ten. I can't stand that dude. So I guess he got me one more time with that Kansas-Kentucky game, and now I can ignore him until the tournament. But or I guess we may see them tomorrow or Wednesday. I mean, if Purdue can pull off the win against Tennessee, Kansas takes care of their business. So there's Zach Edey's game. Certainly don't want to sell anything short. He got in some. I also thought he did a good job, like in the first half, where he wasn't closing on threes. He was letting their big take those threes. He knocked down a couple. What's their big's name, Joe?
EK.
Yeah, EK. And but then in the second half, he started to kind of chase more down, get a little more into it. At one point, he had a block, and then he went back out and covered a guy on the 3-point line and kind of was showing some athleticism there to recover and make a play, then recover. So there were some really good things from Zach Edey once again here tonight. I'm going to shoot through some more of these because, like I said, in about 10 minutes or even 7 to 8 minutes, I'm going to have to roll. And then if you want to do the Joe Jackson in the Stands podcast here to finish, you are more than welcome. You can stay on with our loyal viewers all night long if you want, Joe. The floor was absolutely yours, but we'll shoot through.
We're going to carry this into the game tomorrow, everybody. Just a 24-hour stream.
Yeah, enjoy it. Do whatever you'd like. So, so we talked a little bit about Fletcher Lawyer, who had 2 points on 0-6 shooting from the field, 0 for 3 from 3-point land. Braden Smith, let's talk about him. We haven't really gotten too deep into him. 13 points on 6 of 8 shooting, 4 rebounds, 6 assists. I'm not seeing how many turnovers, but no personal fouls.
2 turnovers.
2 turnovers. So, a relatively clean day. What did you see from Braden Smith? To me, Lance Jones, Braden Smith, Zach Edey, they're the 3 reasons they won tonight.
That first half, it truthfully felt like any possession that didn't go through Braden Smith was a bad offensive possession. A couple times, I have it in my notes, just a couple times, it was around the 13, I think it was around the 13-minute mark in the first half. Whatever. Right around there, he finally creates his own shot, just getting to the mid-range, and I think it calmed Purdue down just a bit after letting up that big run to Gonzaga. He's just so good of controlling the tempo. He controls Purdue plays at whatever pace Braden Smith dictates right now. If they want to push, he's pushing. If he's going to kind of slow down and get into their sets, he's going to be the one to do that and get everybody situated in that. Yeah, no, he's just so good at controlling what the defense can do. He can manipulate defenses. I think 93% of the time he makes like the right read. He forces a few times, but I've been on record many times saying, hey, that's Braden Smith, and you live with a couple of the turnovers that come from him having to force because just of how much he can create elsewhere. Defensively, I thought he was much better in the second half, which was important. 5 steals. I don't remember the 5 steals off the top of my head, but 5 steals is huge there too. Just absolutely, this is, he's absolutely the second best player on this team, and by far, in my opinion, the second most important player on this team.
Yeah, so
you can make the argument that he's the most important, and I don't think I would hate it. I don't think I would like disagree completely.
Yeah, the thing that I'm excited about with Braden Smith was that, like you said, getting into the mid range, but that fadeaway that he did on the mid range, if he could perfect that shot, he very reminiscent of some guys we've seen at Wisconsin and guards like that. Like if he can perfect that shot, he's going to be a tough guy because he's always going to get in the lanes. He's always going to get those layups off the pick and roll, knock down a few threes. But if he can get into that mid range, post a guy up, turn around, fade away, bang, that's an unguardable shot, with most of the guys that are going to be guarding him. So I like that he busted that out because there were a few times where he knocked down a shot where they sorely needed it, where it looked like the lead could spring up to 10 and he was able to kind of stop the bleeding. So credit to Braden Smith there. Another guy that I want to get into, the stat sheet's not going to show his impact on the game, but Camden Heide, who they were calling Cameron Heide. I know we talked about him a little earlier, but I want to get back into him here. Only 2 points, 1-1 from the field, and that was on the backdoor alley-oop. Braden Smith with the nice feed, 2 rebounds, 1 personal foul, but his athleticism, his length, to get back on the fast break off a turnover. I really enjoy what Camden Heide brings to the table.
Yeah, just the athleticism. We've harped on it. You see the backdoor lob. Like, he's going to play in the corner, and he has shown an ability to, 1, cut baseline, and 2, attack the rim baseline. That's huge for the offense. Defensively, I like the vision. I think he needs a little bit more time, but I think he can be a guy that can be a good perimeter defender, both on ball and off ball. Like, he has the size. He moves really well. He can play the 3. Obviously, right now, he can play the 4. I'm pretty confident in that at some point he'll be a 4 for some minutes throughout his career. This year, maybe not, because Purdue's just loaded there anyways. But yeah, just another guy that you can bring him off the bench. He played 10 minutes this game, but he's played 17, 18, 9, 10. Like, he can just be a plug and play guy that if Painter needs athleticism, all right, with size specifically, Heide come in. If not, maybe it's not his game, and he can go to Colvin or whoever.
Right. So I don't know why Corey's gassing me up here saying I don't want to miss a word Braggs has to say. I have a feeling he's got to be
he's keeping records for future. And he's like, you remember when you said this after the Gonzaga game 2 months ago?
Yeah, I'm definitely liable to overhype things because I get excited. I was going to text you guys literally at halftime, I was going to text you guys. I was like, they're screwed. They're not going to win because that's how I get. I get very negative and I'm swearing at my TV. My daughter came downstairs and was like, what's wrong? I'm like, basketball is back. And she was like, you scared me. I'm like, I'm sorry. This is because normally I'm at the game. So now she's got to hear me screaming from home a little more often.
Yeah.
But yes. So let me take a look and see if there's anybody else that really stands out. Caleb first. I had some nice minutes in the second half, showing energy. Mason Gillis had 4 points, 2 rebounds, 3 assists, getting in the action. Maybe I'm just holding my standard too high with these 4s, but I just feel like those are the 3 guys that I'm getting frustrated with the most, Joe. Maybe I'm overanalyzing it. Maybe I'm being a meatball, but I want more. Like, when they get they do something well, I'm like, hell yeah. And then most of the time I'm yelling. I feel like I'm yelling about what they're not doing more than what they're yelling about what they are doing. Am I just being an idiot?
No, I think the 4 is a very important position for Purdue. I really thought first played well, especially I forget which stint it was. It was one of his stints. He played really, really well. I think it was the first half. He grabbed 4 boards, like just solid defense. Edie is elite in drop coverage. First is really good at being able to hedge and show at the perimeter, switch out if needed in a pinch, can get back, like has just good length. He's just a good overall defender. And offensively, he's not like, I think he has to be in the right lineup where he's either playing with Edie because he fits well again with Edie, I think, or like Braden and Jones have to be on the floor as guys that can create, or with TKR. We saw that in the second half where essentially first is at the 5 and first is anchoring the defense, and then TKR goes and kind of anchors the offense through the post. You get him in spots like that. Gillis he knocked down his only 3, 2 rebounds, 3 assists. He had a couple turnovers just off of his head.
Yeah,
I don't think there's too
those
much to
were
take
the
away
couple
from
times
that,
I was cursing at my
just
guy Gillis. I'm like, everybody was getting in on the action with turning the ball over.
Yeah.
Lance Jones, Mason Gillis, Fletcher Lawyer a couple times. The inbounds one just had me irate. And I thought that was going to be their undoing, was the turnovers, keeping Gonzaga in it. But, the firepower that Purdue had ended up being the change. Derek Mullican in the chat. Yeah, 150 watching, 170 right now, 30 likes. We always appreciate if you hit the like button, of course. Subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. If you hit the like button, it helps send that algorithm out to the other Purdue Boilermaker fans that maybe haven't found this channel yet as we continue to grow this thing. We appreciate all the support. I got to get going here in a second, Joe. And then you like I said, yeah, because I want you to go over the rotation minutes when I go. I don't understand this graphic anyway. So if we spend the next 10 minutes you explaining that graphic to me again, we'll be here all night. The final guy I want to talk about before I get going is Ethan Morton. Literally doesn't register on the stat sheet with the exception of his 2 personal fouls, but his impact, if you were only looking at the stat sheet, you wouldn't know the impact he had on this game. And I think this is kind of the same thing with Fletcher Lawyer. Maybe he's not getting the same amount of minutes he got last year, but maybe that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like you were saying, same thing may be said for Ethan Morton. These guys have intangibles that can help a team win if you're not asking them to do more than who they are with their role on this team. Talk about what you thought from Ethan Morton specifically in that second half where I thought he made an impact.
Yeah, he was great defensively, I thought, especially in that second half. Like, Morton, it's goofy at times because of how he falls, he slips. More often than not, he just plays good defense. And I think he's getting more comfortable in his role of just being more of a pure facilitator. He's not, too heavily involved in the offense in terms of that, but he's another guy and when we talk about Lawyer's kind of like this too right now, is Morton is a guy that just knows the offense. He knows where he needs to go. He's going to get the ball in the right spots. It doesn't always look the prettiest. He doesn't always create all of the plays maybe you want, but he also doesn't mess up as much, especially on offense. And I think especially in the Painter system, there is something to be said for that. And then defensively, I love this role for him. 10, 15 minutes off the bench, come guard whoever's on the perimeter that you need to shut down, throw Morton on him. He can now be fresh off the bench. I really like this role for him. That was all offseason. You heard a lot of people say they're playing 4-on-5 when Morton's in. Morton can't play 30 minutes. Morton's thriving in his role now at 10 to 15 minutes. Painter adjusted. Morton seems to have accepted his role as well. It's just, I think it's working really well. And that there's some guys just can't play 35 minutes. It is what it is. Some guys are better 15-minute marks.
Yep, 100%. So I appreciate the insight all night long. All night long. All right, that's my only singing for the night. But I gotta get rolling. I'm heading over to CHGO Bears. Talk about the resurgence of Justin Fields with my guy Corey Wooten, former Chicago Bear. Joe's gonna stay with you, break down some of the rotational minutes and anything else that we left off on the back door. So, like I said, Joe, you can take it away the rest of the night. I'm out of here, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be back tomorrow with another post game show, and we also have the announcement coming on social media, I will announce who is winning the Zach Edey jersey. I ain't got time for it right now. I promise somebody's going to win it. I was supposed to announce it on this show. I'm too busy. I promise somebody's going to win this damn jersey. So we'll see you here in a little bit. Joe, go ahead and take it.
Yeah, so it is me. I'm going to go full screen here. First thing, it was brought up. I got on the Hawaiian theme. You didn't see, well, I guess Kraig couldn't because he was at the game, but it was in the Hawaiian theme. But yeah, we'll go through the rotation here. We'll go through, maybe I'll give a brief preview of Tennessee, probably call it good. We're already at the hour mark. We're going to be back again tomorrow and Wednesday. So through the rotation, we've already talked about a lot of this in general. Sorry, there it is. So one way to read this is simple. If the box is filled, that means that player played. The color corresponds to the position, which is listed down below. Point guard, shooting guard, small forward, power forward, center. 2 caveats. Jones and Lawyer, I switched them to shooting guard and small forward today. I don't really care. When they're both in the game with Braden, I don't really care who you call what. Same thing with TKR and First. I have TKR listed at the 4 because First was guarding their 5. If you want to say, oh, no, TKR was the 5 and First was the 4, cool. That doesn't bother me. But I think the big thing, or the first thing that stands out, this 2-minute mark in the second half, 10 and 11 minutes left. No Smith and Edey. I was shocked to see that. I was even more surprised that Purdue won that 7-2. That was interesting to me. Let's see here. You see, I think the other big thing we've talked about is, Lawyer doesn't get a ton of minutes in the second half because he played bad. TKR, he has that second half stretch. 4 of the 6 minutes are, with First instead of Edey. He plays really well during those 4 minutes. Like, he starts Gillis in the second half over TKR. Painter has shown a couple games like, hey, we have to try this out. There's all the offseason hype for a reason. I don't think Purdue was just making that up. I think TKR probably looked really, really good. They wanted to try it. It isn't working. We'll see exactly what happens going forward. But you see Painter have this willingness to be like, okay, it isn't working. At least for right now, we got to switch it. And he does it. That's it. That's a big thing. If Lawyer closed the game, if TKR closed the game at the 4 alongside Edey, I think it's reasonable to get some complaints. Colvin getting the minutes down the stretch in that second half, the last 7 minutes, that's big. Just in terms of getting him in a pressure situation like that, he's going to shoot the ball. His defense is what it is. I think on ball, he's making strides. I think off ball, he's still figuring it out. But that is big. Let me see. Is there anything else? If you guys have anything you want me to point out in the chat, also throw that in there. I think I think at almost every point, there's 2 ball handlers. If you count Ethan Morton as a ball handler, the only 2 minutes there weren't was the first half at the 11 and 12 minutes. It's Jones, Lawyer, Colvin. So there would be the only time that they had 1 ball handler. I think, I think besides that, like, TKR Edey, it has been quite literally hammered throughout the chat, which we appreciate everybody tuning in the chat and enjoying this with us, communicating with us, talking with us. It's a fun time being able to have you guys in here as well. But that's been probably the most said thing is TKR and Edey doesn't work. Yeah, we're getting to that sample size where it's, hey, we probably don't do this. And like I said, Painter goes away from it. Braden playing 36 minutes is, I don't know if it's worrisome. It's a testament to how important Braden is to this team. Like, they just the offense is just not as good when he's off. I do like the 2 minutes that he is off. That was when TKR was predominantly playing the post. So, like, if you're going to have Smith and Edey off, it has to be TKR. If it's ever like a Jones, Lawyer, Morton, First, Gillis, that's going to be a big issue, I think, because there's nobody really on offense except for Jones. I want to bring that up too. Jones in the first half plays, if I can count, 6, 7, 8, 9. He plays 11 minutes. In the second half, he played closer to like 14, 15. I think he got somewhat benched in the first half because he took a couple dumb shots and the defense wasn't great. He comes back in the second half and really shows good strides defensively, getting to the rim. So, I think in general, that's probably what stands out the most to me. I know I just kind of rambled off a bunch of stuff there. Barry Menner says Edey, Gillis, Smith, Jones, and Colvin/Heidi. That's a lineup that we will see for sure, especially if Lech is struggling or Tomorrow, I'm interested. Like, I've said Fletch is going to be fine. Tomorrow might not be a matchup because Dalton Connect is a 6'6" wing. I don't know who Purdue wants to put on him. It's going to be either Jones or like if Heidi gets the start, or Morton. I could see Morton getting the start at the 3 alongside Smith and Jones if they go that route. So that'll be interesting as well. Yeah, I think that's it for me on terms of this. Colvin with good minutes like this. 10 players get 10 plus minutes. That's just something that shows where Purdue's at depth-wise right now. Colvin's showing that he can just drill threes, which is big. Yeah, so we'll go. Trying to think, was there anything that I missed or I wanted to talk about during? I know some Corey, I think, was demanding for the minutes. Here they are for you there. I did just the Purdue stuff and the plus minus, although individual plus minus does not mean a whole lot. Just being frank, if you look over a big sample size, like then maybe it can mean something. But Jones, 26 minutes was TKR only gets 12. Yeah, so those are just some of the stats there. I think talk about Tennessee briefly and then probably get out of here because we did hit on a lot today and we're going to hit on a lot tomorrow. I am very, very excited that Purdue got Tennessee. I was texting with Braggs and Kraig before, and I told them, like, whether win or lose, I want Purdue to win, but I wanted the Tennessee matchup more than anything. This is going to be a team that for the first time has an elite like wing. Dalton Connect's been one of the best players in the country, period. He just put up 17 today, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 blocks, a steal. He put up 24 against Wisconsin. And the thing that stands out, and I already mentioned, is he is a 6'6" wing, and he plays the 3. They have their 5'9" point guard in Ziegler, Santiago Fescovi, 6'3". And so if the starting lineup is Smith, Lawyer, Jones, my guess is Jones takes him. And so now I want to see that because Jones has been really good on guards. What does it look like when he does have to guard a bigger wing? And if that's the starting lineup, he has to do that. I don't trust Lawyer there. When you go look at the Wisconsin game, they started with AJ Storr on him, who's a 6'7" kind of wing. AJ Storr is just not good at defense, frankly. They switched to Klesmit, and Connect still torches Klesmit, and he's like 6'3", a good defender. That's the biggest thing is I want to see defensively what that looks like. Tennessee is also the best ranked defense per KenPom right now. Can Purdue get a lot of their stuff to go? Tennessee is one of their defense forces offense to take a ton of time off possessions. Can Purdue get out and run still? Like Purdue right now is 119th in offensive tempo. Tennessee is 348th, which equates to like 13th in defensive tempo. So there's only a couple more teams that play slower defense than them. And then just the rotation, I think, is the other thing. Is this going to be more of a Colvin or Heidi game? Does Lawyer get it going? Does he knock down threes? And then now you have multiple wings that you can play. And then Edey, what obviously always when you look at a matchup is what is Tennessee going to do against Edey? They have a 6'11" dude, and I do, who I believe put up a double-double today against Syracuse. He is solid. They don't have a ton of height besides that. JP Estrella has played a few minutes. He's a 6'11" freshman. I wouldn't be shocked to see some double teams. I wouldn't know best. I don't have like an insane scout on them, but it's going to be a really tough matchup. And Kansas is obviously very good. Marquette is obviously very good. In terms of styles, Tennessee is the one that I think probably gives us our hardest matchup, and that's why I wanted to see them. So I'm interested to see. I'm so excited for this game tomorrow. And then if they, with this, assuming Chaminade doesn't go on a crazy run, Purdue is guaranteed what? If Kansas beats Chaminade and then Marquette beats UCLA, then Purdue will be guaranteed either Kansas or Marquette, no matter win or lose, which another game just building the resume. That's why Maui's so big. Just especially winning this game. Now they beat Gonzaga. That's going to be a quad 1 game. And I don't think I've ever gone on my quad 1 rants and quadrant rants. We'll save that for another day when Kraig's here, because I think he's like sort of disagrees with me. Somebody remind me that if we're ever kind of slowing down in the show that I have a quadrant rant I need to get off. But Gonzaga, really, top 15 team, top 20 team, whatever you want to call them. Tennessee, top 5, top 10 team. And then either hopefully Kansas or Marquette, both top 5, 10 teams. building out that resume, getting a couple quality wins. It's going to be very, very good come March. And obviously that's the big thing with Purdue this year is what happens in March. Tyam Daly says, what did Gonzaga shoot from 3 in the second half? I believe they were 0 for 13. Oh, that was one thing I wanted to bring up. I'm a little bit scatterbrained, so my bad on that, guys. But EK, he drills 2 of his first 3 threes today, right? He is now 3 for 16 from 3 on his career. That is counting today's game. So before today, he was 1 of 13. Like I said, when Edey's in that drop coverage, if the big wants to pop, especially a guy like EK who has not shot the ball, period, in his collegiate career, he's going to get those opportunities, and maybe bigs are just going to drill a couple, and that is what it is. So, like I said, we'll be back tomorrow after the Tennessee game. I believe it is a 5 p.m. tip. If anybody can confirm that for me, that would be great. But I believe it is a 5 p.m. tip. We'll be back again right after the game. Kraig is providing all the coverage in Hawaii. He's met up with some good people. We had an interview with the Boiler Suits guys up on our YouTube. Definitely go check that out. And yeah, so it's going to be, it's an 8 p.m. tip. My bad. 8 p.m. Eastern time. So a little bit of a late one. The other sneaky thing that comes out of winning this game is if Purdue lost and then I would think that they beat Syracuse, that third game would have been at essentially 11:59 p.m. Eastern time Wednesday. So it would have been Thanksgiving morning is when it would have started. So avoid that as well. Just another win, another thing to be positive about there. I am going to end it here. We appreciate everybody tuning in. Definitely like and subscribe if you have not already. Follow us on Twitter at Boilers in Stands on Twitter. A lot of good coverage there, like I said, especially from Kraig doing some great work out in Hawaii. We are on Apple, Google, and Spotify podcasts. Especially with Thanksgiving coming up, you want to travel, or people are traveling, you got a car ride, whatever. We have some podcasts out there. We have some interviews. Konzo Martin. We have preseason interviews with both Katie Geralds and Matt Painter. If you've missed those, we're on audio. Put that on while you're in the car driving, getting to where you need to be for Thanksgiving. We will have all the coverage you need here. We appreciate everybody tuning in, and as always, boiler up, I think is what Bragg says.